up, everybody? Welcome back to Wealth Not Wait. I'm your host, as always, Joseph Kawisa, and in today's episode, we're talking about, drumroll please, we're talking about alternative investments. 5 ideas for alternative investing. Things that are different from your traditional just investing in stocks, just investing in bonds, your basic long-term financial securities, things that you're investing, you're putting your hard-earned money, time, effort, knowledge, and of course capital into to hopefully get something long-term that's other than those traditional financial vehicles of stocks, index funds, things like that. So some of these I've had experience with, and I'll say here's my experience with them. Other things I don't have any experience with, and I'm just giving it an example and say, hey, this is something I know people have found success in. This is maybe something you want to look at. I'm not going to speak to something I don't know. I'm not going to, like, one of the items we're going to talk about is commodities, things like gold and stuff like that. I don't have any investment knowledge in that. But I know people invest in gold. I know people buy, barrels of oil or whatever the case may be. And just want to let people know that this is an option that they may have, and that this is something that if they have an interest or knowledge on the market or knowledge on the product and space and this and that, this may be something good for them. So jumping right into it, the first one is not going to be gold, but we're going to be peer-to-peer lending. Now you may be asking, what's something that's peer-to-peer lending? What the fuck does that? It's exactly as it sounds. You being somebody who's just an average person, not a $1 million investor, not an accredited investor, not investing into a business type thing. It's just you as a person investing in another person, essentially giving them a loan. So sites like Prosper, if you go and you look into Prosper, they have amazing customer service from the experience I've had with it. I needed to ask a question once and I called up and they were fucking phenomenal. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but that's what made me focus primarily on their peer-to-peer lending service. I'm sure I'll talk about some more in a little bit and put it there. But something that kind of like turned me on to them was their amazing customer service, which is just a good business tip. If you have good customer service and your customers feel real treated and real well, people are going to keep coming back. But that's just a little thing. Peer-to-peer lending, me being just an average person who's not an accredited investor, I don't have $1 billion in the bank, not an angel investor or anything like that, just investing in another person. Essentially, we come together and we crowdfund a loan. I'm not a fan of taking out loans. I want to make that very, very clear right off the bat. If you guys watch this channel for any amount of time, you know I'm not a fan of loans. But if people are going to be taking out loans and they're still going to do it, might as well make money off of it. That's essentially the way it is. And it also gives me then a better understanding. One, it's financially good for someone like me who's giving out the loan. And then two, it gives me further information on, I understand how that works, how that system works of loaning it out, what a person's going to do, what their procedure is to get that. And thirdly, if they are going to take out a loan, some things are like medical bills. So you could function it by category, but certain things are better than they'll get elsewhere. So say something like debt consolidation. It may be in your best interest to consolidate debt. I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't. It's completely based on your financial situation. But it may be in your best interest to do so. Again, talk to a financial advisor, not necessarily just a debt consolidation person, but a financial advisor who can advise you if that is the case. And they'll get a better rate on Prosper than they will some other places. That's not always the case. That's not always the situation, especially what I try to invest in. I try to invest in things with higher yield. Again, stocks, some of them don't pay out dividends. This would be more of a cash flow type thing. If you look at making a mogul, most of my alternative investments are to generate cash flow. And then I can focus putting that cash flow into things like the S&P 500 index, which may or may not pay out a dividend. And if it does, it's maybe not fucking huge. But then it's going to grow over time and build that equity. Peer-to-peer lending, essentially, you just say, hey, I have $50. I find a loan. It gives you a credit score. It gives you this person where they're located. It doesn't give you super in-depth information, but maybe an occupation, the range of how much they make a year, what their bank card utilization is, how much under debt they are. If it's like, hey, I only have a small amount of debt, I have a good credit score, I'm from the state, I'm a CEO, investor, whatever it is, and I make $100,000 plus a year, I need a $10,000 loan for XYZ thing. 4%, here's how much they pay. Prosper makes a percentage, or peer-to-peer lending service makes a percentage. This is, again, my experience working with it. Peer-to-peer lending may differ per site you're using. But, hey, this is what I have. And you say, okay, 10 grand. I like this. I feel this is a solid investment. I have my $50. I'll put my $50 in. I'll put up the whole 10 grand if you want. But anything from whatever their minimum is to whatever the maximum amount is for a loan, you usually get a whole bunch of people, hundreds, if not thousands, I imagine. Put the money in, and then it pays you back a proportion of it. The thing is, which is a good investment, but bad for people taking out loans, unfortunately, and again, this is why I advise against loans, is the amortization. If somebody goes in and is saying paying 20, 30% interest, it's not 20 to 30% interest what you're paying overall. It's going to compound and build almost. With the way amortization works, it's not just you pay 30% interest a year and then you're done. It's you're paying off primarily the interest and then portions of it go to the principal for the loan. Again, look up amortization if you want a solid, concrete definition of it. But that's my general explanation of it. And if you're over a 3 to 5 year period, like a lot of these loans are, you'll end up paying twice the amount you're taking out in loans. So if somebody takes out, say, 10 grand and they have a high yield and it's, again, amortized, they could end up paying 20 grand or more after everything's said and done. If they make the payments on time, which unfortunately some people in tough situations do. A lot of them pay it off early. A lot of them only end up paying X amount, I've seen. But if you're in a tougher situation, you may pay it on time and make those minimums, and then you're paying off significantly more. So that's the downside if you're taking out for peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer lending is, as far as an investor, obviously you want to use a reputable service. Obviously you want to pick a good investment vehicle, the person who is taking out that loan. I've had, especially during COVID, people who've foreclosed. People who, hey, I can't pay this loan. And then it goes and it gets washed. You know, I'm sure Prosper or whoever takes it to collections, but we, as the individual investors, don't see any of that money. It just gets written off our books. Okay, it's a loss. You know, it's unfortunate, especially now with the recession stuff. You gotta play your cards right when you're purchasing things like that. I also had, unfortunately, somebody who passed away. That was a fucking shock to me when I figured that out. I was like, oh, what's the reason why they didn't pay this off or why it got written off? And it said the person was deceased. I'm like, oh my God, you know, this person I never met or never even, I don't even know their name. But I'm like, hey, I lent this person money and they passed away. That sucks. You know, obviously for the financial reason, yeah, whatever. But I'm like, you know, you almost feel like you know them at that point. It's just like, wow, you know, this person died. That's horrible. You know, so it's just a little side thing. You know, if you have a heart, you're like, wow, you know, yeah, fuck the money at that point. But it's like, wow, this person died. That sucks, you know. So that's just my little story with peer-to-peer lending. You know, I didn't think it was going to go that way, but that's essentially peer-to-peer lending is you lend money to somebody, again, in a formal setting, not just handing it to your friend. But yeah, in a formal setting, you essentially become a lender then. They being the borrower, and you get money back paid. You get a little bit of principal, a little bit of the interest. Again, I would advise you looking more into it if that's something that sounds appealing to you. And that could also be a great way to provide some form of income while diversifying your investments. So, taking a look at my list here, number 2, I don't know how I would have forgot this one, is what we know and love, comic books. Comic books specifically, I'll talk about collectibles a little bit further, giving you guys a bit of a sneak peek. So, this one is number 2, comic book investing. Investing in comic books. If you know things about comic books or pop culture items like that, like comic books and such, you could be broadened out. But specifically, I'm talking about comic books, again, something that I do personally. Knowing what characters are important in which stories. Hey, with the MCU going on, I know, say, Nova. I know, say, Squadron Sinister, things I've shown on this before. I know this character, I know that character, they're not yet in the MCU. Say, She-Hulk before she was introduced. I know this character's not yet in the MCU, they're extraordinarily important to a lot of stories. Let me go out and purchase the first appearance of those, a lot of them for the 60s, 70s, sometimes 80s and later, but a lot of them are newer. I mean, or older, my apologies. Older, and you're buying a good condition comic book of a popular, well-known in the comic book community character for lower than what it's worth. You just do the same thing you do almost at a garage sale or resale. You find it, you go on eBay, you go, this one's selling for $25, usually goes for $60, they're bidding. For whatever reason, nobody sees this bid, boom, I jump on it. It could take a while to find something like that, but boom, you jump on it, you do that enough time, and you have a fucking huge comic book collection like I do, and you have your graded comics, you have your not graded comics, and now I know, say for something like Nova, it costs X amount to get graded, it costs X amount for the market price of the comic. I end up negotiating, using my negotiating skills from resale, and just in life in general, to negotiate a price that lower if I bought the comic for market value, and then there's no guarantee that it's in the grade it is, and then paid for the grade, and it just so happened to be the grade it is, it was a 6. I would have I bought it for less than it's worth, essentially. That's the gist of it. I understand it may be confusing to say it like that. But I bought it for less than it was worth. If I were to go out and buy a number 6 condition comic book that was not graded, I wouldn't be taking the risk that it's not a number 6. Could be lower, could be higher, but it could be lower. And then paid the money to get it graded based on the age, $25, $35 plus shipping, unless you go to a convention, which in this area, it's, Pinellas County, it's once a year at the big Tampa Con. Anything like that, and then the membership fees and all that, I essentially got it for less than it was worth. And then I have things I bought for $25, and the comic book can go for $60 to $80. I just bought it, and I got it at a good auction at the right time, or I found somebody who was selling it, or I got it at a garage sale. It just happened to be in a box of comics I picked up. Whatever the case may be, buying comic books, knowing, hey, the market for this character is going to shoot up. This is an important character. This comic's in a good condition. It's an older comic, so there's not a whole lot of them. As the years go on, they get damaged and dinged and dented and burned and thrown out and this and that, so there's less of them. This is something that even if they don't come into the MCU and become a big character, or DC or what now, especially DC as they're figuring this shit out, even if it isn't, this is still a good condition comic book at a good quality price. That if it stays the same price or even drops a little, I can still flip it later on and make good money from it. So that's a little bit of it. Comic books, again, specifically we'll talk about other collectibles, but just my experience, comic books has been a great way to do that. Other collectibles, of course, I have more experience with, but comic books like I bought for the less of the idea of, that's a long-term investment idea of finding something, say, being going to be put in a movie. As far as reselling, I bought a bunch of Invincible and Walking Dead comic books after the show had come out. I knew that a month later, now that the show's out, even though I bought it then, once people really get a chance to watch the show, they're going to love it. I bought it. It was a while after the show came out. I waited a little bit, just kind of, I was lazy. I was just waiting for the market or time in the market or anything. I was a little lazy putting them up, but I eventually put them up and I sold them like crazy. So something like that can also be a good investment, comic book specifically. If you know the market, you're buying a good quality comic with the right characters, the right story at the right price. A lot of it's like reselling or a stock. You gotta find and negotiate the right one at the right time at the right price. That's the situation. So number 3 now on my list is going to be gold/physical. The fuck did I put there? Commodities. That's what it was. I can't read my own handwriting sometimes. But gold, physical commodities. This is something that I have no experience with personally. I tracked the market a little bit, and I forgot when I checked. I wanted to say it was 2020. Over the 20-year period or 30-year period I looked at, it was consistent with, at that point, what the S&P 500 was. I think it was a little lower. Pretty sure stocks were still a better investment at S&P 500 at that time. It could change. Some people like gold. I never really bought out and invested in gold because you got to ship it, you got to store it, you need a big fucking safe. I'm not going to keep fucking gold bars just laying in my house. Yeah, it's tougher to sell that. The market's fluctuating on it. I also don't know a whole lot about it, and as I'm a huge advocate for, I'll get real close for this one. Investing in shit you know. Wow, it's a fucking crazy idea, right? Who would have thought? But I don't know a lot about gold. Maybe one day I'll learn. Maybe I'll add that to my portfolio, or buying gold commodities or something along that line. But if you're someone who knows the market, if you're a jeweler, or you just really in the metals, or like you like gold, maybe you like something physical and you're not big on the whole technical aspect of it, that or commodities, silvers, oils, whatever the case may be, could be a good investment for you to diversify your investments, and a good alternative investment because it's not something that's a traditional financial vehicle. It fluctuates, of course, with the market, and you say, hey, gold's super cheap right now, or somebody's selling gold at a reasonable price. Say you get a gold ring, it's made of gold, and you know that, and you go through the proper procedure. It is, in fact, made of gold, let's just say, and it happens to be at a thrift store, and they're selling it for $20. Well, this amount of gold right now in the market goes for $45. You could get it, and you could resell it, or maybe you could keep it, especially if you know gold is a hot commodity right now and the price is increasing. Again, know your market, know the item, know what you're investing in. I haven't had any experience with that, but gold and commodities is something that I've heard a lot of people found to enjoy, again, if they know what they're doing. So, my fucking list fell. So, number 4 is going to be real estate. Real estate does count as an alternative investment. If you guys want to look into any experience I have with real estate, I'm not a real estate mogul yet. Little plug. Well, watch my Making a Mogul channel. I invest in real estate through small share investing, kind of coming together. I can't think of the word what it is right now, but a whole group of people buying into it, almost like a stock market type thing, and buying the business that real estate owns through Landa. Landa is a great app. I'll have the code in the bottom if you want to check it out. If not, you want to use a code, I just highly recommend you do your research and learn it. A lot of people like real estate. It has created the most millionaires, not billionaires, the most millionaires by type of wealth creation vessel. Ahead of finance, ahead of tech, ahead of everything, real estate is the most one who creates the most millionaires. Billionaires, however, is financial. So that's just a little bit of knowledge for you. Real estate could be a great investment, again, if you know what you're investing in. And I try and learn that. And you can follow my process on learning that with the Making the Mogul series. And you can also follow along Landa, or a investment vehicle where you invest $5 a share and you don't take out a large amount of equity and debt to buy a complex or something like that and then have to run it and property management and all that. That could be a good way to get into real estate, especially now when things are booming. But again, do your research, know what you're investing in. If you do, and real estate's the thing that you set your heart on and what you got your mind on, real estate can be a really good investment, especially to break up your stocks and bonds and your other traditional financial vehicles. Real estate could be a great, and it also has good cash flow, especially with stuff from Landa. The investments I found cash flow really well. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to go for alternative investments that cash flow. Not just the value increasing, that's good, of course, as we know, but cash flow as well. Cash flow, as Grant Cardone would say, is king. So, number 5, finally getting into it, collectibles. Things other than comic books, your action figures, your toys, your cards, your assorted bullshits, cars, like little cars, big cars, whatever the case may be, collectibles and physical items are also a good thing, again, if you know what you're investing in. I kind of sort of know a little bit about sports cars. I would not go out and buy a Ferrari and try and fix it up and resell it a couple years later. That's not something that I would do right now. Physical items like cards, Gary Vee talks about it a lot. Oh, I'm going to buy this rookie card. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go out and buy a Jordan card because it's undervalued. 2 years later, the market blows up. That card he paid $10 for is now worth $150. That could be a big thing. If you're big into sports like my brother is, and you know about baseball, and you know this guy's the up-and-coming prospect, and he's the next Derek Jeter and the whole thing, you go out, you buy his prospect or his rookie card, you wait a couple years, he blows up. Let's just say he is in fact the next Derek Jeter. If not, you didn't spend a lot of money. But let's just say he is. You bought, 100 cards for $100. Now it's worth $1,000. Now it's worth $10,000. Whatever the case may be. Stuff like that happens a lot. Like Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is a good example of that. That's a few sports people I know. But something along those lines. Again, action figures. There's a movie coming out. Invincible. If you have the Invincible type stuff, it was big beforehand because it was a little more of a niche market. But if you have any Invincible action figures that you bought before the show was popular and the show came out, that could have been a good investment as well. Or, again, anything along those lines. Cars, physical stuff. If hey, they're coming out with a new Ford, and the Ford car is not the F-150, I can't think of it now. Ford supercar. If the Ford supercar is coming out and they based it off this particular year model of this supercar, and you're somebody who can afford that, going out and getting it, or say, hey, I'll hold on to this, or something along those lines. Physical items that you're investing in that's opposed to a traditional financial vehicle can be a great way to do it. Your collectibles and your physical items are great alternatives, again, if you know what you're doing. Number 6, I'm going to throw you guys an extra. Number 6, and this is a little more of a clouds instead of the dirt kind of thing. Investments in yourself. Oh, that's nice. You're investing in yourself. Knowledge, information, knowledge. I feel like Ty Lopez. Knowledge. If you invest in things like books, you invest in information, you invest in your own business, you invest in different things other than a traditional financial vehicle, and you're growing who you are as a person, as a business, whatever the case may be, that can be a good alternative investment to a financial, like stocks or bonds or something along that line, especially if you're investing in your education. The reason why I put this as number 6 is because it's less of a direct, I put money into something, I hold on to it, it grows in value for a year or two, or whatever, 10 years, 30 years, ideally long term you want to do. And then I sell it for more money, or cash flows or something along those lines. This is more of a, I'm improving myself, or the things I use to make money, like a business or a supply or whatever. And then therefore that makes me money. It's an investment into me. It's an investment into my business. That's why it's a bonus. I know reading these books, The Intelligent Investor, all that, all the money could have been just a couple $100. I mean, a couple $100 in any one of these books. Not there's one book in particular, but and $100 to get this whole section here, less than that, a couple $100 to get that. If I read and act on every single one of these books, that is going to put me at a significant advantage compared to what I am today to get to where I want to be. That's just plain and simple. So investment in yourself, investment in communications, like Warren Buffett says, learning to communicate with people, get to know people, investment in your knowledge, investment in your actions, investment in all that into yourself can be a great alternative investment. So I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know, what is your favorite alternative investment below? Do you do any of these, and what are your opinions on it? If you guys like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.